हरि ओम। ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः। ओम श्री हिरण्यगर्भाय नमः। ओम श्री महाविष्णवे नमः। ओम श्री महादेवाय नमः। ओम श्री महादुर्गाये नमः। ओम श्री राम रामाय नमः। ओम श्री सद्गुरवे नमः। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। ओम गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। भवानी शङ्करौ वन्दे श्रद्धाविश्वासरूपिणौ याभ्यां विना न पश्यन्ति सिद्धाः स्वान्तस्तमीश्वरम्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। रामाय रामभद्राय रामचन्द्राय वेधसे रघुनाथाय नाथाय सीताय पतये नमः। बुद्धिर्बलं यशोधैर्यं निर्भयत्वमरोगताम् अजाड्यं वाक्पटुत्वं च हनुमत्स्मरणात् भवेत्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। शङ्करं परमानन्दं ब्रह्मनिष्ठं यतीश्वरं भाष्यभ्रान्तिहरं वन्दे शुद्धज्ञानैकबोधकम्। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ नमः शिवाय 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 ॐ नमः शिवाय। नमः पार्वतीपतये हर हर महादेव। हरि ओम हरि ओम। We'll begin with the Shanti mantra. Om Bhadram Karnebhih Shrunuyam Devaah Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraah Stirairangaihi Stuštuvagam Sastanubhihi Veshema Devahitam Yadayuhu स्वस्ति न इंद्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्ताक्षो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम। We'll chant from verse number, mantra number 3, chapter 3, section 1. Yada pasya pashyate rukmavarnam kartaramisham purusham brahma yonim तदा विद्वान् पुण्यपापे विधूय निरञ्जनः परमं साम्यमुपैति प्राणो ह्येष यः सर्वभूतैर्विभाति विजानन् विद्वान् भवते नातिवादी आत्मक्रीड आत्मरतिक्रियावान् एष ब्रह्मविदां वरिष्ठः सत्येन लभ्यः तपसा ह्येष आत्मा सम्यक् ज्ञानेन ब्रह्मचर्येण नित्यम् अन्तःशरीरे ज्योतिर्मयो हि शुभ्रः यं पश्यन्ति यतयः क्षीणदोषाः सत्यमेव जयते नानृतं सत्येन पन्था विततो देवयानः एनाक्रमन्त्य ऋषयो ह्याप्तकामाः यत्र तत्सत्यस्य परमं निधानम् बृहच्च तद्दिव्यमचिन्त्य रूपं सूक्ष्मच्च तत्सूक्ष्मतरं विभाति दूरात् सुदूरे तदिहान्तिके च पश्यत्स्व हैव निहितं गुहायाम्। हरि ओम्। We are seeing the third chapter of Mundaka Upanishad, which begins with a beautiful metaphor of the two birds, one eating the fruits and another bird just watching. So this metaphor indicates the two expressions of Brahma within this body, one as the Jiva and another as Ishvara. In the state of ignorance, they appear two, but when we come to recognize, when the ignorance gets eliminated, we will understand, we will realize our oneness with that Ishvara, who is always present in his pure glory in our Antakarana. So once we come to realize Ishvara as our own self, we will become free of all our sorrows, all suffering, will become free of this samsara. For this, what is required is extreme purity of our antakarana, especially our buddhi should become supremely pure. For that, we have to not only pursue the path of karma yoga and upasana, but also cultivate values, important spiritual values like satya, tapas, brahmacharya, etc. When our antakarana becomes pure, clean, then we will be able to recognize that Brahma in our buddhi. So Satyameva Jayate, ultimately Satya alone will win, not lies. So we have to hold on to values like Satya. Following this value alone, many seekers, they attain that supreme goal of self-realization. Now in this seventh mantra, more beauty of that supreme pada, that supreme Brahma is revealed. Let us chant this mantra again. Seventh mantra. Brihaccha tad divyamachintya rupam Sukshmaccha tat sukshmataram vibhati दूरात् सुदूरे तदिहान्तिके च पश्यस्विहैव निहितं गुहायाम्. Once more. बृहच्च तद्दिव्यमचिन्त्य रूपं सूक्ष्मश्च तत्सूक्ष्मतरं विभाति दूरात् सुदूरे तदिहान्तिके च पश्यस्विहैव निहितं गुहायाम्. So, Shankaracharya ji in his beautiful Bhashya, he explains this mantra. So that question is there, ki kim tat kim dharmakam cha tad iti uchyate. So what is that Brahma? What is the dharma of that Supreme Brahma, that Supreme Pada which we attain through self-realization, that is being indicated in this mantra with the help of these beautiful words. So it is Brihat. Brihat means big. Brihat Mahatcha Tat Prakritam Brahma. That Brahma which is being described here is big, is large, is infinite. There is no limit, there is no limitation of any kind in that Brahma. Satyadi sadhanam sarvato vyaptatvat, which is all pervading and which can be attained through sadhana like Satya. That Brahma is vast, big, infinite. Nothing can bind it. Space, time, objects cannot bind, cannot limit that Brahma. Therefore it is indicated as Brihat. And Divyam, it is Divya. Divya means Swayam Prabham. Anindriya Gocharam, Swayam Prabha. It is self-luminous. It is of the nature of knowledge itself. In its presence only, our instruments like mind, intellect, senses, etc. get the ability to know. But that knowledge itself is the nature of that Supreme Brahma. That knowledge is also indicated as light. So it is that light in which everything shines. So Swayam Prabha, and it is self-luminous. It is independent. The light of that Brahma doesn't depend on anything else. It is self-luminous. Swayam Prabha. And it is Achintya Rupam. One cannot think about it. Why? Because it is Anindriya Gocharam. Ataeva na chintayitum shakyate asya rupam iti achintya rupam. Actually, the senses cannot see it. See, we can, through our senses, we comprehend these 5 elements as Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Even the Akash is so subtle, it cannot be seen through our senses. But Atma is subtler than even Akash. So it cannot be seen, and it doesn't have any of these qualities of these 5 elements. There is no sound, there is no taste, there is no touch, there is no form in that Brahma. Therefore, one cannot think about it. Because to think we need some support. To think we need some qualities. Then only one can think. Generally, the mind can think taking support of the stimuli which it receives from the senses. So if we see something, hear something, taste something, then we can think about it. But here Brahma cannot be thought in any way because the senses cannot comprehend it. So it is achintya rupam. And sukshmacha tat sukshmataram. It is sukshma, means extremely subtle. Sukshmat akashadehe api tat sukshmataram, even subtler than akash. See, akash itself is so very subtle that it is very difficult to even understand the secret of this akash. Even science is trying to find out the secret of akash. First they thought that akash is only a vacuum, but then they came to know that no, akash is not vacuum actually. Therefore they started calling it ether, and it has got many qualities also which are very mysterious. So akash itself is extremely subtle, and subtler than this akash is this Atma. Sukshmat akashadehe api tat sukshmataram. Nirartishayam hi sukshmyam asya sarva karanatvat. It is extremely subtle because it is the very cause of not only this akash but everything else. Everything is emerged, everything is the effect of this Brahma only. So it is subtler than the effect, extremely subtle. So sarva karanatvat vibhati, and vividham aditya chandradi akarena bhati dipyate, and that Brahma alone is expressing as this world. The world which we see through our senses, in this world alone is hidden that Brahma. Brahma is not somewhere else. What we see, hear, taste, touch as this world, in this world alone is that Brahma hidden. Therefore, in order to point out the Brahma, the scriptures point out toward this world only. In Brahma Sutra also, that Brahma is indicated as Janmadhyasya Yataha. In Taittiriya Upanishad also, that Brahma is indicated as that from where the world has come into existence, in which the world exists, and in which the world again merges back. That is Brahma. Means in this world itself, we have to discover that Brahma. We have to understand that Brahma. What we see is not Brahma, in the sense it is just a form which we see, but in that form is hidden that Brahma. In the taste, in the touch, the Brahma is hidden. Therefore, it is said that it is vibhati, it shines forth as the sun, the moon, the stars, as everything in this world. Therefore, in Gita also Bhagavan indicated to Arjuna his various vibhutis in this world. He said, I am the Himalayas among all the mountains, I am Gangaji among all the rivers. He pointed out lot of objects of this world as his vibhuti, his expressions. He is hidden in them. So, and further it is said ki durat sudure, that Brahma appears to be very far away, means very difficult to comprehend and difficult to attain when we are totally engrossed in our ignorance. Kincha durat viprakrishta deshat sudure viprakrishta tare deshe vartate avidusham iti atyanta agamyatvat tad brahma. For an ignorant person, that Brahma is extremely difficult to understand also and difficult to attain also. Because ultimately we have to attain that Brahma with our Shuddha Antakarana. When we have ignorance of our own self, and that ignorance gives rise to various types of desires, which gives rise to various types of negative qualities like anger, jealousy, greed, passion, then with that impure buddhi, we are unable to comprehend that Brahma. Even when it is conveyed, we don't understand. Therefore, it is said it is extremely far away for an ignorant person. Avidusham atyanta agamyatva tad Brahma. But at the same time, iha dehe antike samipe cha vidusham atmatvat. But for a wise person, ultimately that Brahma is attained within this body itself. Within his own antakarana, he comes to experience that Brahma. How it is so close? Because it is his own self, it is our own self, atmatvat. We come to realize that most mysterious and all-pervading Brahma in our own antakarana. However subtle and however difficult it might be, but when our antakarana becomes pure, we are able to comprehend that Brahma within our own antakarana, within our own heart. Sarvant samipe, it is extremely near to a wise person. Vidusham atmatvat. Sarvantaratvacha akashasya api antara shrutehe. It is because that Atma is present in everything. It is even within Akash. Akash itself is so subtle, it is present everywhere. All the objects of this world is pervaded by Akash, by space. But Atma is subtler than Akash, it is within Akash also. Like that the Shruti, the scriptures, they talk about that Atma. So sarvantaratvat cha akashasya api antara shrutehe. So that Brahma is pursued, is realized by whom and where? He says ki iha pachyatsu chetana vatsu iti etad nihitam stitam darshanadi kriyavattvena yogibihi lakshamanam. It is pursued by yogis, by seekers who put forth effort in the right direction. And where do they come to see this Brahma? Pachyatsu, in all the living beings, including themselves. They come to see that Brahma present in all living beings. Pachyatsu. Pachyatsu means Chetana Vatsu iti etad nihitam stitam. They see the presence of Brahma in all beings, in all living beings, as though expressing through them in the form of seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, performing different types of actions. It is the presence of Brahma only which makes all this happen. In Bhagavad Gita also, 13th chapter, we had seen, Bhagavan says that this Brahma, though it is itself free from all senses, it itself is free from all sense organs, etc. But it is seen shining through all of them. Sarvata panipadam sarvatokshishiro mukham sarvatak shutimalloke sarvam avrutya tishtati. Brahma alone is expressing as in all the senses, in all the heads, in all the ears, in all the legs, in all the feet. Brahma alone is expressing. But it itself is sarvendriya gunabhasam sarvendriya vivarjitam asaktam sarvabhrucheva nirgunam gunabhoktrucha. But it itself is devoid of all these senses. So most fascinating. Most fascinating. And it is present within this. And we experience that Brahma when we alone, when we are in deep sleep, we are one with that Brahma only. Nothing separates us. But when our buddhi wakes up, it wakes up along with all its confusion and all its mala, and we fail to recognize that Brahma. So, a wise seeker, a yogi, comes to see that Brahma. Guhayam buddhi lakshanayam, he comes to see that Brahma in the cave of his own intellect. We have to realize that Brahma in our own intellect. Recognize that Brahma in our own intellect. Tatra hi nigudam lakshyate vidvadbihi. Tatha api avidyaya samvritam san na lakshyate. Tatrastham eva avidvadbihi. So a wise person comes to see, comes to recognize that Brahma in his own antakkarana, in his own buddhi. But an ignorant person, though it is Brahma is so close, doesn't recognize it. So our buddhi is the most fascinating instrument. With the help of our buddhi, we have to first understand that Brahma, and thereafter through meditation, we have to realize that Brahma. With the help of the buddhi, first we have to understand that Brahma, gain the knowledge of that Brahma, and through meditation, we have to gain direct experience of that Brahma. So this is very beautifully now presented in the next mantra, very important mantra, mantra number 8. Let us chant. Na chakshusha grihate napi vacha nanyar devais tapasa karmana va jnana prasadena vishuddha sattvaha tatastu tam pashyate nishkalam dhyayamanaha. Na chakshusha grihate napi vacha nanyar devais tapasa karmana va jnana prasadena vishuddha sattvaha tatastu tam pashyate nishkalam dhyayamanaha. Shankaracharya ji writes कि पुनः अपि असाधारणं तद उपलब्धि साधनमुच्यते. That this Brahma, which is so subtle, so very mysterious, again the Shruti gives us a sadhan by which we can comprehend this Brahma. Because the scriptures doesn't believe only in giving the theory. It wants us to actually comprehend and realize this Brahma. So that sadhan is given here, which if we understand properly and pursue, we will definitely be able to realize our own self as Brahma. So let us see what is said here. First, the teacher is saying that with what we cannot comprehend that Brahma and with what we can comprehend. what is that which are helpless in front of Brahma, and what is the technique by which we can comprehend that Brahma. Shruti says ki na chakshusha gruhyate, that with our eyes we cannot see that Brahma. See, we gain all knowledge in this world through our senses. But here, the same senses fail to show us Brahma. With our eyes, eyes represents all the sense organs. So with our eyes, ears, nose, skin, tongue, we cannot comprehend that Brahma. Not only directly with our eyes, but even with all the instruments which we have developed and invented. With those instruments also, we will not be able to comprehend that Brahma. See, there are scientists have discovered and invented such subtle instrument that by which they can not only see something which is so tiny little, but also they can see things which are very, very far away, billions of light years away. Those stars and those galaxies and all, they can see through their instruments. Even recently they have sent some telescope up in space to study the distant stars and distant galaxies. But with all these instruments and all, we can only see the world outside. The instrument doesn't show us the seer. The instrument fails to show the seer, the subject. The instrument only shows the objects. So, na chakshusha gruhyate, Atma or Brahma cannot be comprehended with our eyes, means with our senses. Na api vacha, not even by speech. Sometimes we may directly not see it, but we can hear somebody talking about it and we can understand. He says, no, not by speech also. It cannot be comprehended with speech because it cannot be described with speech. Even the Shastras, they don't describe Brahma. They indicate that Brahma. And they use the terms like neti neti by negating all that is known. So, na api vacha, nanya devaihi, na anya devaihi means not by other senses also, not by all the sense organs of perception, nor by any organs of action we can comprehend that Brahma. But what about tapas? Because tapas is considered most powerful sadhana. Even things which are totally unattainable can be attained through tapas. And before also in the mantra, the teacher had pointed out the importance of tapas. That this Atma can be attained, satyena labhyaha tapasa hesha Atma. So what about tapas? He said tapas also directly cannot reveal that Brahma. Tapas also cannot give us knowledge of Brahma. Tapas helps to purify antakarana. All the sadhanas are helpful in purifying our antakarana, but they don't give us the knowledge of that Brahma. So not tapasa, even by tapas we cannot gain it. And what about karma which are mentioned in the Shastra? There are very subtle and very beautiful karmas are mentioned. Various rituals are mentioned. Some of them are so important which have to be done every day like Agnihotra karma, etc. But the Shastras, the mantra says that even by karma we cannot attain it. Karmanava, not even by karma. But then it is impossible then. If we cannot see it through our senses, if we cannot attain it through tapas, if we cannot attain it through karma, that means it is just a theory, it is impossible to attain. He says no, one can attain it. And how? Jnana prasadena vishuddha sattvaha. Jnana prasadena vishuddha sattvaha tatastu tam pashyate nishkalam dhyayamanaha. Through jnana prasad, by the blessings of knowledge, which is attained in vishuddha sattva, in the extremely pure intellect. When we acquire that knowledge of that Brahma, thereafter, tatastu tam pashyate, thereafter one sees it by, after meditating, nishkalam, that nishkal Brahma is realized, dhyayamanaha, through meditation. Meditation happens after gaining the conviction and knowledge of that Brahma in our pure intellect. Again, as I said, our buddhi is the most fascinating instrument. Our buddhi is not a product of the five elements. Our buddhi is the product of Mahat Tattva. Mahat Tattva is the Prakriti of that Brahma, the Shakti of Brahma. That Brahma Shakti, Brahma has got two Shaktis, in the sense two types of Shakti, the Apara and the Para. It's called Prakriti also, Apara Prakriti and Para Prakriti. The Para Prakriti is what is called Prana. And the Apara Prakriti has got 8 parts. They are Avyakta, Mahat Tattva, Ahankar and Pancha Tanmatra. 5 Tanmatras. Ahankar Tattva. Ahankar Tattva, that is also a part of Prakriti. Then Mahat Tattva and Avyakta. So that Avyakta Prakriti of Ishvara, or that Brahma, expresses as first as Mahat Tattva. Mahat Tattva is the cause of Buddhi. From Mahat Tattva only the Buddhi is born. Then from this Mahat Tattva is also born Ahankar, and from the Ahankar is born Samashti Mana and Pancha Tanmatras. So our Buddhi is the most subtlest and the most wonderful instrument, which has got the natural ability to reflect whatever is there in front of it. And whatever gets reflected in the Buddhi, one gains that knowledge. That knowledge happens. So our Buddhi is also part of this Samashti Buddhi, the Buddhi of Hiranyagarbha. Our Buddhi is a fractional part of that Samashti Buddhi. But our Buddhi also has got the capacity to comprehend. So our Buddhi is like a mirror. Just like a mirror is there in which we can see our face. Also the mirror reflects anything which is there presented in front of it. Anything which comes in front of the mirror gets reflected in the mirror. See, suppose I tell you to draw something, let us say I show you something, some object, and tell you to draw it, you have to be a really good artist to draw it exactly with the same color and the same form. Sometimes we see some nice videos of great artists who paint and draw things so accurately, so beautifully. But still you may find some defect in them, may not be 100% accurate. But there is an item, there is an instrument which can draw anything exactly as it is presented in front of it, and that is the mirror. Anything is placed in front of the mirror, it just reflects the same thing exactly. That is the very nature of the mirror. Similarly, the very nature of our buddhi is to express whatever is presented in front of it. Okay? Now, there are two things which are presented in front of this buddhi constantly. One is the world. The world is presented in front of the buddhi constantly. In our waking and in our dream, we constantly understand, know the world, because it gets presented in the buddhi, our own buddhi. And whatever is presented in the buddhi, we know. We experience whatever is reflected in the buddhi as knowledge. So we know. When we wake up from our sleep, deep sleep, our eyes open and we see, look around. So those forms which are seen by the eyes, they get reflected in our buddhi, and we just know. See, knowledge is the most fascinating actually experience. We just know. So the world is presented, is reflected in our buddhi. But there is one more thing which gets reflected in the buddhi and which we know, and that is that Brahma which is present everywhere. So that Brahma, when it gets reflected in the buddhi, it is experienced as I, aham, main hoon. Experience of that reflection of presence of that Brahma in the buddhi is experienced as I am. And the presence of this world in the buddhi is experienced as this is. Both are the knowledge happening in the buddhi. I am and this is. Buddhi just presents it. So Shankaracharya ji in Brahma Sutra Bhashya, he indicates that knowledge of the world as Yushmat Pratyaya Gochara. Knowledge of all that is experienced as this, as idam. And Atma or that Brahma is experienced as Asmat Pratyaya Gocharam, as I. Yushmat Ashmat Pratyaya Gocharayoho Vishe Vishenoho Tamaprakashavad Viruddha Svabhavayoho Itaretar Bhavanupapattau Siddhayam Tad Dharmanam Api Sutaram Itaretar Bhavaha Anupapattihi. Shankaracharya ji begins his Shankar his bhashya on Brahma Sutra, by presenting these two types of knowledge which happens in the buddhi, knowledge of idam and knowledge of aham. But a mixing of this knowledge has taken place. I have not separated exactly the knowledge of aham and idam. So some portion of idam I consider that as aham, and something of aham I consider as idam. So anyonya adhyas it is called. It's a confusion which has happened within, which is called adhyas, which is the root cause of all our problem, which has happened in our buddhi. A mixture of this knowledge of idam and aham has happened within the buddhi. See, sometimes we look into the mirror, we want to see our face, but then there is a big lot of crowd is there, lot of people are there, and we can't see our face clearly. Sometimes we mistake somebody else's face as our own. Similarly, in this mirror of our buddhi, the images of the world and the image of aham is also there, and there is a total chaotic confusion has taken place, which is called adhyas, which is the very cause of all our bondage and sorrow. So we have to, with the help of our shastras, with the help of our teacher, and through deep contemplation, first should be able to separate these two images in our buddhi. The image of idam and the image of aham. The knowledge of idam and knowledge of aham should be separated. That's called viveka. That's called atma anatma viveka. We have to separately understand these two as different. That one is knowledge of the world and another is knowledge of this aham. Knowledge of aham and knowledge of idam. Both are happening in the buddhi. And focusing our attention and taking the guidance of the shastras, we have to negate all these names and forms as neti and come to recognize the presence of Brahma in idam, in this world, and recognize the presence of Brahma in aham. So when this happens, and this will happen when the buddhi becomes extremely pure, free from all confusions, free from all negative tendencies and values which are the products of confusion, like jealousy, greed, passion, anger, etc. When all of them go away, Vishuddha Sattvaha, when the mind, intellect becomes extremely pure, Vishuddha Sattvaha, then the Jnana Prasada happens. Buddhi comes to understand that Brahma. Buddhi comes to understand that Brahma. That understanding of Brahma in the Buddhi is what is called the understanding of that Neya Brahma. As in Gita also Bhagavan says, Neyam yattat pravakshami yat jnatva amritamashnute anadimat param brahma nasattanna saduchyate. Neyam Brahma means the buddhi gets convinced about Brahma. Our own buddhi, it has got the capacity to know. So when the buddhi gets convinced, thereafter With that conviction, one has to meditate. That conviction is one step, that knowledge. Thereafter, through meditation, we have to realize that Brahma as experience that Brahma as our own self. The buddhi gets convinced about Brahma. That is the knowledge which we have acquired in the buddhi. But at the same time, we also have experience of our own self, direct experience of our own self. Free from the gross body and the subtle body, as the Pratyagatma, as the Kshetrajna. So that which we experience subjectively as I, and that which we have understood with the buddhi as Brahma, we have to bring them together and understand that I as this Brahma, I am Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi. Because that is the teaching given in the Upanishad, ki tat tvam asi, that Brahma which you have understood in your buddhi, in your pure buddhi, that Brahma, tvam asi, you are that. Tat tvam asi, you are that Brahma. See, all this we can understand and really appreciate very systematically, properly, only by studying the Shankar Bhashya. Because the other literature and other Prakarana Granthas and all have created so much confusion. Even the simple Mahavakya Tattvamasi is not explained properly, and people come up with various funny theories, Jahal Lakshana, Ajahal Lakshana, Jahala Jahal Lakshana, and all sorts of crazy ideas are there, which because of which the thing is not comprehended properly. Shankaracharya ji conveys everything in a very simple, clear way. So, jnana prasadena vishuddha sattvaha tatastu tam pashyate nishkalam dhyayamanaha. So now let us read Shankaracharya's commentary on this mantra. He says, Yasmat na chakshusha grihyate. Since this Brahma is so subtle, it is not comprehended with our eyes. Kenachid api arupatvat, because it doesn't have any form. If it has got some form, some color, some length, some breadth, some structure, then with the eyes we can see that Brahma, but Brahma doesn't have any of this. Kenachid api arupatvat na api grihyate. Vachan abhidheyatvat na cha anyer devaihi in itarendriyehi. Also, it cannot be comprehended with the Vani, the speech, because it cannot be expressed in speech. You cannot express that speech through speech. It can be experienced, cannot be expressed. See, there are things which we experience, but we cannot express. For example, if I give you some nice mango, ripe, good, Goan mango, mankurad, to eat. Then I also give you a ripe, nice apple to eat, Kashmir apple. Very sweet, nice. So you have eaten the mango, you have eaten the apple also. Now I ask you to describe what you have experienced exactly, so that a person who has not eaten those fruits will be able to understand. I tell you, you will not be able to express. Though mango is also sweet, apple is also sweet, but that sweetness is different. You have understood that difference, but you will not be able to express it. Experience is something so interesting, so subtle, that even those experiences which we have every day, we cannot express. What to talk about that Supreme Brahman? Even those who have experienced Brahma, they cannot express it. So, the Vacha, the Vani cannot express it, cannot describe Brahma. Not even speech, and also not the other senses. Anya Devaihi. Deva here means the senses, other senses. They also cannot comprehend, see, hear, taste, touch this Brahma. Then tapasaha sarva prapti sadhanatvepi na tapasa griyate. Even tapas, through tapas also we cannot comprehend that Brahma. Though tapas is so powerful, it is a great sadhana to attain lot of other things. But we cannot comprehend Brahma through tapas, means through concentration, just focusing, concentrating. Many people think meditation is just concentrating. So they keep concentrating on some mantra or some form or something. That is not meditation. That is concentration. And even if we concentrate for thousands of years, we will not gain that knowledge. Knowledge is something different. Knowing is something different. Concentrating is different. So tapas is concentration. Tatha Vaidikena Agnihotradi Karmana Prasiddham Mahatvena Api Na Griyate. And even with famous karmas mentioned in the Vedas like Agnihotra, we cannot comprehend that Brahma. So kim punaha tasya grahane sadhanam iti ahat. So what is the sadhan to comprehend Brahma? So the Shastra says jnana prasadena, by the prasad of knowledge. By the prasad of knowledge means what? He says atma avabodhana samartham api swabhavena. This by the prasad of our buddhi, which has got the capacity to know the self by nature. It is its swabhav. Only thing, it should be purified, like the mirror. The mirror has got the capacity to reflect whatever is in front of it. But suppose I am keeping a mirror and it is not getting reflected, it is some problem with the mirror, in the sense there is a dust in front of the mirror. So mirror has to be wiped clean so that there is no dust. And where is no dust, it presents. So the mirror just presents what is in front. The mirror doesn't create that object. The mirror doesn't create the object which is there in front of it. It just presents it as it is. Similarly, the buddhi doesn't create knowledge. It just presents what is there in front of it. And that we understand as knowledge, that we come to comprehend as knowledge. So buddhi not only presents the world, but buddhi also presents the Atma, our own inner self, which we come to understand as I am. And with the help of the Shastras, we come to know that I am is Brahma, I am Brahma. So jnana prasadena Atma avabodhana samartham api swabhavena. By nature, the buddhi has got the capacity to know, but sometimes sarva praninam jnanam, and it is true for all the beings. all beings, they have this buddhi which has got the capacity to know. But what is the problem? He says, Bhagya Vishaya Ragadi Dosha Kalushitam Aprasannam Ashuddham San Na Avabodhayati. Because of the defects of impurities due to attraction for the world, objects of this world, attachments, there is a defect in the buddhi. What you call impurity has covered that buddhi, and because of that, thus the knowledge doesn't happen as it is. It gets colored with the impurities. The self gets colored with impurities, the world gets colored with impurities. So it is required to clean this buddhi. So he says that sannihitam api atma tatvam malavanadham iva adarshanam vilulitam iva salilam. He says, just as the dust which gets accumulated on the mirror, we can't see our face, or like the impurities or in the water, the reflection is not clear. In the same way, when impurities are there in the buddhi, the reflection is not clear, understanding doesn't happen clearly, though buddhi is extremely close to the Atma. Okay? This requires little bit more thinking and contemplation. So we will continue with this mantra in our class tomorrow. So till then, you take care, be happy, safe, peaceful, healthy, do your work, do your sadhana. Listen to the pravachan again. Think. Contemplate, understand. Don't assume you have understood. Just think again and understand it properly, as taught to us by Bhagwan Sri Adi Shankaracharya ji. Okay? And we will meet again tomorrow. Hari Om. Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram. 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 Jaya Jaya Ram. Jaya Jaya Ram. Bole Siyavar Ramachandra Bhagwan ki Jai. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.